They say betrayal is loud. That it crashes through your world like thunder, tearing down everything you once believed in. But mine was quiet. It arrived as a perfume I didn't wear, lingering on the collar of his shirt. As a nervous smile when he spoke too sweetly. As a second phone I wasn't supposed to find, locked with her birthday. I didn't scream. I didn't cry, not right away. I stood in the hallway of our house, the one we built together brick by brick, watching him kiss our daughter goodnight. And I realized. He was wearing a lie. He had one arm into lives, one wrapped around me, the other reaching toward a woman who didn't build the life he stood in. I sat in silence that night. The kind of silence that feels like drowning while no one else hears the splash. I opened the photos. Read the messages. She called him my future. He called her his peace. And I, Danielle Brooks, had become his burden. I wasn't the fire in his eyes anymore. I was the tax he paid to look responsible. Funny how a man can forget the woman who stood beside him during law school, eating ramen in a one-bedroom apartment, writing his cover letters while holding a baby on her hip. That next morning, I smiled. Not for him. For me. Because the storm inside me had started to whisper back. You don't need to burn his life to the ground. Just build yours so high, he can't see the sky anymore. So I planned. Quietly. I let her keep him. Let them live in the illusion they built out of stolen bricks. Because revenge, real revenge, isn't about shouting. It's about becoming. And I was just getting started. Her name was Savannah. The first time I saw it, it was glowing on his screen at 2:14 a.m. Just Savannah circling stars dot. No last name. No explanation. Just a galaxy where my reality cracked. I remember how my fingers hovered above his phone, shaking, but still scrolling. I saw words that didn't belong in my marriage. Can't wait to wake up next to you again. Don't forget what we talked about. Soon. She doesn't understand you like I do. I almost laughed at that last one. Because she didn't sit beside him when his mother was in the ICU. She didn't stay up with him during finals when we were broke and scared and clinging to dreams like broken glass. She didn't watch him fall apart after losing his first case. I did. But Savannah. She walked in when the picture was already painted. All she had to do was pose. He brought her into our life slowly, like a poison that's sweet at first. Cancelled plans. Unread texts. Missed dinners. And always, a reason. I even invited him to couples therapy. You know what he said? You're imagining things, Danielle. Don't let your work stress ruin what we have. Ironic, isn't it? A man gaslighting a woman who argues federal cases for a living. I had the truth in screenshots. But I didn't confront him yet. Because I wasn't ready to break the story. Not until I could own the ending. So I smiled. I waited. I planned. And when her name entered my house, I silently promised myself. She wouldn't stay long. They always expect the woman to fall apart. To scream. To throw plates. To beg. But I did none of that. I packed my bags on a Sunday. Folded every blouse like a contract clause. Sipped each suitcase like I was closing a case file. He was at the gym. Or at her place. Honestly, it didn't matter anymore. I took my law degree off the wall, the one we hung together when I got promoted. And I paused when I reached for our wedding photo. Not because I wanted it, but because I earned the woman in that picture. She wasn't crying. She wasn't weak. She was standing next to a man, believing in a future they both said out loud. Turns out, only one of us meant it. When he came home that night, the lights were dim. Not dramatic, just done. Where are you going? He asked, dropping his keys. I looked him in the eye and said, someplace where I don't have to shrink to make you feel like a man. He tried to laugh it off, to charm me into staying. But he knew. There was nothing left to convince. I handed him a copy of the apartment lease I'd signed. And right on top, the preliminary divorce papers. I already filed, I said. Your turn to respond. For the first time, he looked small. Not because I raised my voice, but because I didn't have to. Sometimes the loudest goodbye is the one you deliver without breaking a breath. And when I walked out that door, I didn't look back. Not once. Because the woman I used to be had already left the building. My first love was justice. But betrayal taught me business. I spent the first few weeks in a daze. My mornings felt mechanical, coffee, coat, collapse. But beneath that numb routine, something started building. A fire. I wasn't just angry at him. I was angry at a world where women like me, black, brilliant, boundary-breaking, were only valued when silent. I'd climbed every ladder in the legal world, and still, the ceiling had his fingerprints. So I did something wild. I stopped defending other people's companies and built my own. A firm, but not just any firm. A think tank. A legal agency. A space where marginalized voices weren't included, they led. I called it Brooks and Rain. We launched with 4 women, a tax genius, a civil rights fighter, an immigrant visa expert, and me. 4 stories. 1 mission. No apologies. And people noticed. Clients who once saw me as the backup lawyer suddenly saw a founder. A name on a door. A force in heels. We didn't just win cases. We changed policies. We offered workshops, built scholarships, mentored law students who looked like us. It was loud, it was bold, and it was mine. But success doesn't make you forget. Sometimes it just gives you a better view of the battlefield. Because as the headlines started using my name, so did she. The woman who helped dismantle my family was suddenly posting feminist quotes under my TED Talk. She copied my phrases, quoted my mission, used my name in circles she once called too political. But here's the thing. You can copy a brand. You can even borrow a narrative. But you can't fake legacy. And I was just getting started. It started with whispers. A deal she fumbled. A pitch she stole. Then a journalist called me, not for a quote, but for context. Apparently, she was presenting my firm's initiatives as her own. I didn't respond with a statement. I responded with silence. Because I didn't need to expose her, she was unraveling herself. And the world was watching. People remembered. Screenshots surfaced. Her words mirrored mine. But worse, her results didn't. While we were winning lawsuits that protected working mothers and immigrants, she was bragging about sponsoring overpriced galas. While we were mentoring young black law students, she was plagiarizing Instagram captions and calling it empowerment. Then one day, at a National Women's Summit, her mic cut out, literally and figuratively. She was supposed to speak before me. But sponsors had seen the receipts. Clients had read the threats. She was dropped. And I took her slot. I walked on stage in a deep navy suit, braids freshly twisted, heels steady. The applause was thunderous. Not because I was loud, but because I had weathered everything they said would break me, and still stood. I was once told that I was too emotional to lead, I said into the microphone. They were right. Passion is power. And I've used every tear as fuel. When I stepped down, a line of young women formed. Not for selfies, for advice. For internships. For courage. And in the back of the room, she stood. Silent. Watching. It wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. She didn't just lose me. She lost the ability to define me. Some names fade. Others become foundations. Mine became a signature. After the summit, I returned to the office to find it transformed. Not physically, though we had grown, added more staff, opened to new floors, but energetically. There was a confidence in the air now. A hush of reverence when I walked by. My name no longer echoed because of betrayal, it resonated because of victory. That same week, a billboard went up in Midtown. Brooks Legal. Built by fire, forged in truth. My face. My voice. My story. People shared it online. Wrote essays about it. Called it a symbol. A triumph. And then I got the email. From her. No subject. No greeting. I see you everywhere. You even sound like me now. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. My presence was the answer. My silence was power. But still, I knew she watched. I knew the sting of my name followed her. In articles, in ads, on lips that used to only whisper hers. Danielle Brooks had replaced her in the rooms that mattered. And not because I took her place. Because I built my own. One afternoon, I walked past a bookstore and saw a memoir displayed in the window. Mine. Unbreakable, the truth they tried to erase. A line of women inside waiting for the signing. Every one of them had a story. And somehow, mine had helped them believe theirs deserved to be heard too. That night, as I sat in my office, a junior associate knocked. She came, she said, softly. She's in the lobby. I didn't flinch. I just nodded. When I walked out, she was sitting on the same bench she once occupied as a guest speaker. But now, she was just quiet. Small. I thought maybe you'd want to talk, she said. I tilted my head. You don't get to narrate anymore. She looked down. They don't say my name the way they used to. I stepped closer. They say mine now. She swallowed. Do you ever miss who we were? I smiled, gently. No. I'm finally who I was meant to be. And I walked away. Because sometimes, the best closure is no longer needing one. Her story ended in betrayal. Mine? It's still being written.